What is it to be an American? The answer, it's not what you think. I went to China to understand my wife's culture, but instead, this journey helped me to realize my own. The moment our plane touched down in Hong Kong, Trump stopped mattering. American politics, well, they just disappeared. See, when you're 7,000 miles away from the noise, you start to understand your own country in ways you never could from inside it. My name is Paul, and welcome to the 5th. Sincerely, thank you for watching. And please like, subscribe if you enjoy this content. It really helps me a lot, and I do appreciate it. So, I'd seen the Hong Kong skyline before, but only in those grainy Bruce Lee films from the 1970s, and I was expecting those towering buildings against a mountain backdrop and an ocean dotted with those traditional sampans and junk boats. And what I found was something far more compelling. It felt like San Francisco. The way the clouds rolled over the mountains, the energy of the city and the bridges, but you know you're in Hong Kong the second you step out of the airport. It's not just the language, it's the smell of the air and the sight of those bright red British-style cabs, and they're called hackney carriages, and they're everywhere, driving on the wrong side of the road. No, this definitely wasn't San Francisco. Maybe London? The docks, the British cars, the Chinese characters everywhere, the narrow, confusing roads, and to be honest, I didn't know where the hell I was.
Good.
So our hotel was really luxurious, overlooking a maze of those narrow, crowded Hong Kong streets, but we couldn't stay inside. We had to get out. The city at night, it was just too exciting. Crowds, lights, city noise, and the smell of all that food. And I was surprised by the narrow roads and the skinny sidewalks. And there was really no room to walk. And looking to the left for traffic in the wrong direction, while my wife had to yank me by the arm to avoid the car on my right. But, you know, dinner was good. It tasted just like an American Chinese restaurant, really. Noodles, rice, and the meat was a little bit too sweet. $99. Oh my God, wait, that's $10 US. The food tasted better suddenly. Well, the next morning, the weather was perfect. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the smell of the sea hit me once again. The Peak, a shopping mall perched on a mountainside overlooking the bay, was surreal. A shopping attraction designed to showcase the city itself, those glistening skyscrapers and bridges. A showcase of Chinese ingenuity, and in some ways, it almost didn't seem real, like the glass towers were put there just for show. The illusion didn't seem to end even when we were walking along the path of the stars. Everything was so perfectly groomed and really clean, too. Too perfect. It made me think of the tourist videos in Pyongyang. You know, an isolated imitation of perfection. It was really hard to believe that 7.5 million people live here compared to only 800,000 in San Francisco. But all of that vertical living space, well, it had to have some perks, right? And we saw it all. Rich districts, poor districts, subways, parks, hidden alleyways. I was overwhelmed, really. My excitement was a mix of confusion and a little bit of fear. And when I thought I knew where I was, and when I thought something actually made sense, I realized that I was lost. But I kind of loved that feeling. Around every corner a mystery, a discovery, a question answered, And that's when I noticed something, or rather, I didn't notice it at all. Where were all the homeless? The tents? There was no smell of urine, rotting food, no panhandling, nowhere. And our last trip to Seattle, and we were in the expensive part of town by the wharf, we had to step over homeless people. They're sprawled across the sidewalks, some guy in his sleeping bag, another on a bench, and I even watched this woman in her underwear make camp in front of an office building. But here, in a city with 10 times the population, not one person making camp, not one panhandler. Everyone was busy. They were all working, moving, like a colony of ants on an anthill. I didn't know what to do with that information. Was this better? Worse? Both? I couldn't find solid footing for comparison. Hong Kong wasn't Bruce Lee's backdrop. It wasn't San Francisco. It wasn't Europe. And it was something I didn't really have a language for yet. So back in the hotel room, I stretched out on the bed and opened up Facebook, and there were the familiar arguments, the same stupid complaints about Trump, the same trolls attacking anyone who disagreed with them. In a land 7,000 miles away, still seemed like it was screaming for my attention. The comfort of turmoil, well, that kind of actually felt like home. After striking out yesterday, I was kind of chomping at the bit to find a good steam bun restaurant. We couldn't find any. And today, luck was on my side, and the steam buns were delicious. My belly was full, optimism high. We started our trek to the high-speed rail station, and I had an oversized, huge American suitcase clacking behind me on the alleys and the sidewalks. And then, as soon as I walked in the door of the Hong Kong station, the clacking stopped. Well, we had stepped into one of the largest structures I'd ever seen. The station seemed to sprawl for miles. We wove through endless halls, passing stores and restaurants. It was like America's biggest airport, but on steroids. And we entered this massive hall divided by a simple line on the floor. One side said Hong Kong territory, the other side said China, and my suitcase rolled right over. I didn't feel a thing. Well, not yet anyway. And then came the first checkpoint. These rope lines stretched out like a theme park queue. One side nationals, the other side foreigners. And Yolan, she had to go left, and I went right. And for a second I had thought, what if I don't see her again? The officer barely looked at me. Passport, itinerary, camera. I stared into the lens and watched my face get digitized on the screen with green, red lines mapping out my eyes and my mouth, creating this blueprint of me. And somewhere on a server, it was storing all that data. Somewhere I was now cataloged. But I kept moving. Still no sign of Yolan. Another line. Luggage on the conveyor. Passport again. My brown hair. My beakish nose, what felt like a spotlight. Another checkpoint, another form to fill out. Where are you staying? Why are you visiting? How long will you be here? Well, I handed it to another officer. He looked at the form, then looked at me and stamped it, and waved me through. And I thought I was done, but no. Another checkpoint, another luggage scan. What the hell were they looking for that they didn't find the first few times? And then finally I saw her. Yolan waiting on the other side. Shoo! But the whole time, I wasn't really worried about me getting into China. You know, I have money, and China likes tourists with money. But my anxiety had been building. Would I be able to get my wife back into the United States? That was the question. Because with all the rhetoric back home, with Trump, with the way the conservatives talk about Chinese immigrants online, well, that fear was real. And in the days before we left, I triple-checked everything. We had our marriage certificate, her real ID, her green card, make sure it was all in order because I knew when we came back, she'd be the one under scrutiny, not me. But 3 checkpoints, 3 luggage scans just to cross from China to China? Well, in the U.S., you can drive from New York to California and never even see a single checkpoint. You don't even know you crossed a state line until your GPS told you so. But here, the borders are intentional, visible, enforced. Well, finally I got to sink into the wide, comfortable seat of the high-speed train to Shenzhen. I looked at my watch, and we'd already walked 4 miles today, and the day was only beginning. And the ride itself was short, only about 20 minutes, most of it in a tunnel. But emerging from that final tunnel was like entering a different world. The blue skies of Hong Kong vanished, replaced by this grayish-white haze. I checked my phone, no service. Fuck, I was cut off. We arrived in mainland China. There was something about making it through all those checkpoints that shifted my perspective a little bit. They don't make it easy. My American privilege meant nothing to them. They didn't apologize for my discomfort. They didn't care about my privacy. And in some weird way, that created a respect. Not because I liked it, but because it was clear that they weren't going to compromise a damn thing for my comfort. And China doesn't care if crossing the border is a pain in the ass. They're not trying to make visitors feel warm and squishy at the expense of their control. And there's something very clarifying about that. You're a guest. Now act like one. The no service on my phone was a clear reminder. I was just a visitor, and my Hong Kong SIM was now dead. I needed a mainland China SIM, and I needed it fast. Without Yolan and without a phone, I'd be totally lost. Our hotel, it was in a building that was still under construction. It was more like this Airbnb-style service department. The lobby, though, was this beautiful marbled hall, fancy, but that illusion, well, it ended at the door to our room. What happened to the air? Why did it turn off? Oh, it's still going. Train station over there. High-speed train. City. The room looked over Shenzhen's endless construction. And our shower, that didn't drain. And the room had this kind of funny, weird, funky smell, probably from all the unfinished construction and dust in the air. But on the surface, it seemed nice. Things were being built so fast, though, it felt like they didn't wait to finish anything. And after unpacking, we took the subway to Huashan Bay, a famous electronics district. The reputation was totally earned. The streets were packed, a solid mass of people. Delivery drivers on electric scooters, they zipped through the crowds as if the rest of us were just NPCs in their video game. I must have said, holy shit, a dozen times, near misses, left and right, but Yolan didn't faze her at all. Our first stop was China Mobile for a new SIM card, an absolute must for any visitor. The cards they sell to foreigners coming from Hong Kong are special. They don't require a VPN, so U.S. sites aren't blocked. And I bought only 15 gigabytes, but in hindsight, I should have probably bought a lot more. With the new special SIM, though, the phone connected to the internet, and I was able to access everything. Facebook, Google, everything as promised. But the reality of the Great China Firewall crashed down quickly. My laptop and tablet were completely blocked from most U.S. websites, including Facebook, YouTube, Google search results. The Play Store, yeah, that was blocked. Yahoo Mail, also blocked. For the moment, well, my phone was my only lifeline to the United States. My other devices, worthless. I had 15 gigs of freedom on my phone, and that would go away pretty soon. If it wasn't for the endless shops, the delicious food like the mapo tofu that was so spicy it numbed my tongue and made my nose run for an hour, I might have been a little bit more conservative with my data. The fact was, the data, it's my drug. It's like my beer or a hot cup of coffee, a way to wind down after the relentless attack to my senses. And you're probably watching this on YouTube right now, annoyed by the algorithms feeding you content you didn't really want. You click on one basket weaving video and all of a sudden, that's all that pops up on your feed. The ocean of YouTube content is sometimes polluted with garbage that you don't want to see, but my recommendation, well, stop whining, because here in China, the oceans have walls. The train ride to Wuhan took 4 hours, and in that time we flew through Shenzhen, Dongguan, and Guangzhou, a continuous sprawling metropolis, endless roads and towering skyscrapers, passing in a blur, and we were moving at nearly 200 miles an hour. But even at that speed, the sheer scale was mind-boggling. For what felt like an hour, we never left the city. Nothing in the U.S. even comes close, and I knew I was only seeing a small slice. But then, just like that, well, we're in the countryside, zipping past mountain ranges and rice farms, only to blast past a sudden cluster of high-rises that look like downtown Denver. Someone dropped it in the middle of a field. And to understand the scale of China, we'll take a look at this map. Hong Kong is down here, close to Taiwan. Wuhan is here in the center. And that trip took us 4 hours. Shanghai is another 4 hours to the east, and Beijing is another 4 hours to the north. And for perspective, here's a 600-mile line in the United States, about the distance from San Francisco to Salt Lake City. That's a 4-hour trip in China. In America, well, that's a 19-hour drive. Wuhan is China's central hub. It's historically significant. The Japanese fought really hard for it during World War II. And geographically, it's unique. Split in half by the massive Yangtze River, the city is pocked with more lakes than land, which makes the air really thick, humid, and uncomfortably hot. But our high-rise hotel was the peak of luxury, a top-floor suite with views of the sprawling metropolis. I was really surprised by the modern planning. Tree-lined roads, perfectly placed towering buildings for as far as the eye could see. The furniture was elegant, a huge king-size bed and a giant bathroom with jacuzzi tub and separate rain shower. This place was meant to impress. But overnight, something changed. A smell crept into the room, rot, or maybe it was just bad plumbing. I pulled my blanket over my head just to breathe the clean air, hopefully. And it was cleaner than the outside. The morning came, and I stepped into the shower. The toilet was separated from the shower by a single pane of clear glass. Who thought this was a good idea? Or did they just run out of frosted glass? The inspiring view was gone, hidden under a blanket of smog. My throat burned, my eyes itched, and I took a photo. We were sitting right in the middle of it. Yoel and I finally left the room, and as the elevator descended, my ears popped, and with every floor down, my eyes and throat felt a little bit better. And by the time we hit the street, the irritation was gone. We headed to a massive mall in downtown Wuhan so that Yolan could get her hair done, and these malls are incredible. They have the energy of an American mall during the 1980s. This mall was packed with people and rose 8 stories above the street, not including the subway level that went 2 stories below. And the food courts here are incredible, not like American food courts with chain restaurants and hot pretzels. These are absolute chaos. Coffee shops next to bakeries, next to roast duck hanging in the windows, next to beef and lamb skewers. And the smell alone was almost too much. Sesame, 5-spice, caramelized sugar, soy sauce, grilled meat, all competing for my attention. People everywhere shouting orders in rapid-fire Mandarin, and my head was just buzzing, my mouth watering. So naturally, I got a pizza. Oh, you're still here. Well, why don't you hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it? It goes a long way, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.